right. That's working. Now we just got to wait for this to work. Come on. Okay. And that's working. Hooray. All right, and pop out chat. Put it in the right spot. And we're all set. There we go. Hope everyone's doing well this Sunday, or potentially Monday. Depends on where you're at. It is a gloomy Sunday. It's been gloomy here for days and days. I haven't seen the sun in some time, sadly. Let's see here. We've got good morning from sunny Alabama. Wish it was sunny here. Good morning. A good day from a gloomy, chilly, and rainy South Ontario. We've got a bit of that, yeah. Outback Australia. Oshawa, Ontario. Good morning from the Mitten. That's lower part of Michigan, in case anyone's wondering. Let's see here. Scotland. We've got Ontario again. We've got London. Slightly damp London. Sunny but wet spring morning here in Jonesboro, Illinois. Like a nice, I'd like some sun. That'd be great. What else have we got here? Starting to wonder if we're going to get a summer. That's also a good question. I don't know. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted. Top chat, not live chat. Why it decides that top chat is what we would like and not live chat, I don't know. It's ridiculous. Like, that shouldn't be a default ever. Just straight up. Anyway. Best of Aussie greetings to you, Adam. Thank you, VJ Morph. Good morning from a very nondescript Salt Lake City. I don't know. Salt Lake City is pretty descript, I think. Like, when you're flying in, it looks real weird. The Salt Lakey, flatty bits are all weird and squishy looking, but then you get in there and there's a bunch of buildings and a mountain and stuff, and it's nice. I've literally only hung out in the airport. Well, no, that's not true. There's also a Perkins right near the airport that I've hung out in and then gotten on a bus and then gone east for about an hour and a half. Or I've transferred to go to Reno. One of the two. That's about it, though. Seeing you live for the first time in way too long. Cheers from the Netherlands. Well, cheers to you as well. Budapest, nice. 2 a.m. in New Zealand. Gloomy San Diego, trying to get my painting mojo back. It's, you know, I don't hear of gloomy San Diego frequently. I usually hear of a lovely sunny San Diego, but, you know. Dark 10 p.m. in COVID lockdown Shanghai. I've been hearing about that. That's a bummer, yeah. Good morning from Minnesota. Florida here. Good morning. Good morning from Connecticut. Greetings from Henderson, Nevada. Not ready for summer. Well, I mean, I'm ready for it to get spring at the very least. I've got a bunch of terrain that I want to be able to rattle can, but it has been either too cold or too damp. Yesterday it rained quite a bit and was also too chilly, so that was not going to work out. I've got some, I can talk about it now because the date has passed. I got a bunch of the new Necromunda stuff from the Ash Wastes box. I have a here. This is the rule book, and it's much like the regular stuff. It's basically like the regular rule book, and they just added in like the vehicles and stuff, and a few other things, as far as I can tell. But the terrain is very cool. I like the terrain quite a bit, and the guys who are like the Ash Waste dudes the models are pretty cool too. But like I got it a couple of weeks ago, and I was as is mentioned in the title card. I was in Boston last week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so I didn't get any chance to work on that. And then I just day job and all that kind of stuff. So I have 3 of the like raised pods finished, like built. And I have some of the other pieces like walkways and things. And I've just got a couple of different things. I'm probably not going to end up using them for Necromunda, sadly, but I'll use them for other stuff. I just want to be able to get them a little bit of rattle can on them because it really helps. With plastic mini kits, I really like to be able to put a decent layer of rattle can primer on it because it sticks to it a lot better. And as I've said before, terrain has a tendency to take more of a beating than your miniatures do. So anyway, yeah, I haven't been able to do much with it, unfortunately. So hopefully soon. I don't know. We'll see. Even if I can get just a light dusting on there and let it sit and then do the rest of it in airbrush, that'd be fine by me. But just something for the, yeah, just would be better. Let's see here. Good morning from a cloudy, wet Shawano, Wisconsin. How you doing, Jesse? Best thing to happen to me all week was getting a Kodiak and a salvage box. I don't know what that means. I know what Kodiaks are. They're big. They're very big bears. I hope that the bear was nice to you. Morning from New Orleans. Moving into my new painting studio today. Nice. Morning from sunny Florida. My wife accidentally shattered my Lord of Change proxy a few days ago when I was just about to finish it. I've lost all desire to hobby. I mean, you could glue it back together again. That's what I would do. Morning from Nottingham. A moist West Midlands. That's hard to say for some reason. Morning from Alberta, Canada. You could sell it and buy a small car. It would be a pretty small car. I mean, you know, it's an expensive kit. Our box, you know, the Necromunda. It's like $300 American, $299 or something like that. But yeah, cars are. I mean, first car I ever bought when I was in college. First car I ever bought was I think it's still $1,300, and that was in I don't know the mid '90s. So yeah. I mean, I could buy like a toy car, but then I have a bunch of money left over, so that's fine too. I had the same problem, either too cold or wet, or both, to prime or do yard work. I'm fine with not having to do yard work, to be perfectly honest with you, but yeah. What's your opinion of the Necromunda Ash Waste? Like I said, I feel like the box is kind of expensive. If the leaks coming out about the price of the Horus Heresy box are true, then the fact that those two boxes cost the same, they both come with a hardcover rulebook. One comes with about 20 models and some terrain. The other one comes with like 40 TAC Marines, 10 Terminators, 2 special character hero dudes, and a tank. Oh, and a Dreadnought. And they cost the same is weird to me a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. I have not gotten a 100% confirmation that Horus Heresy box is like $300 American, but if it is, then it's the same price as the Necromunda, and I don't know. I mean, there was a Necromunda box called Dark Uprising, I think it was called, and that was like $290, and that was a couple years ago. So Necromunda is just kind of expensive. I don't know the deal. I'm not sure, but if you want to learn more about the actual game and watch it, there's a battle report that Ash Barker from Guerrilla Miniature Games, not Gorilla like the, you know, primate, but Gorilla like the GUE, you know. Anyway, yeah, he did a battle report with Chris from Way of the Brush, actually, Chris Bellew, who's also a good guy. And they did a thing, so you could watch that to learn more about it. I think they're going to do a campaign, so. Let's see here. Ogden, Utah. How you doing? Marvel Crisis, colorful fun time lunchboxes on the table for assembly. Awfully tiny parts and fiddly bits. I've been hearing that. Yeah, that is an issue. I kind of wish, I got to be honest, these pieces of terrain for Necromunda, like those pods that you saw like in the artwork, you know, or the pictures, it's like a raised, like it's like a little tripod. It's not a tripod. It's got 4 legs kind of or whatever, but it kind of goes up and then there's like this raised pod and stuff like that. Each of those base is 30 to 35 parts. Like there's just a lot of little noodly little things and stuff like that. Took forever to kind of build. And I don't know, for terrain, I do wonder how useful that is sometimes. They look cool, but there's a lot of parts in each one of those things. So yeah. Afternoon from Switzerland. Yep. Ash already painted all of it and ran a game in Necromunda. Yeah, he totally did. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got it a couple of weeks early, but then I was traveling and all that and stuff like that. So, you know, but yeah, Ash is definitely a machine. But I want to make a video about painting the terrain. I think I definitely want to do that. Won't be up this Friday, maybe the Friday after. But yeah, definitely going to work on that. Depends on whether I can ever prime the stuff. Let me see here. Nick is out of the house? No, actually Nick is in the sunroom, which is over there. My wife has been practicing. She's got a gig coming up, so she generally practices. Instead of being here in the dining room, she practices in the sunroom. It's, well, nice when there's sun. Ash Waste is like $500 Australian. I'm not one to whinge about prices, but that is pretty nuts. I've been telling people to get into Dead Zone. You have. I've seen it. Yeah, I mean, the prices in Australia and New Zealand are always crazy for that kind of stuff, for sure. Yeah, I agree. 52 miniatures. How you doing? Hope you're well. I hope you're well as well. Yes, I hope you're well as well. Let's see here. Moderator Matthew Sears. How you doing? Everyone behave. It's my last day of the move. Nice, nice. Good morning from Saskatchewan. Always fun to say. I was very surprised and happy that you got some Uruk-hai models. Will you paint them on your Twitch stream? I don't know. That's a good question. Probably not. Maybe the reason I'm saying maybe not is because I'm thinking about just doing them with enamel washes, which is kind of an airbrush room kind of thing. Because maybe I could try brushing on the enamel wash and seeing if that works. I haven't tried that yet. Might be a thing to try out. We'll have to see. But yeah, and then I also need to put together I need to do a little bit more research and figure out, like, I know how many models I need to start with. Like that Uruk-hai force is like 7 models, which is awesome. But I've seen some stuff on Reddit, which admittedly is, kind of not great in general. But there's some stuff on Reddit about, like, people were like complaining about battle companies because they're like, well, you need to buy more stuff than you do to play regular the game. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right, because it doesn't make any sense. Like you start with 7 models, whereas when you play regular Middle Earth, you start with, I don't know, 30 or something like that. So I don't understand how that works. But I think that they were talking about, like, well, as you play during the campaign, you keep adding stuff or whatever. So I need to take a look at that a little bit too and figure that out. But to be perfectly frank, I don't necessarily see myself even doing a campaign. It might just be one-off games for fun, at least to start, unless it really, gets me excited, and then I could see where it goes from there. But yeah, I need to do those guys. Like I said, those 7 models are built to start my group, and then my Warriors of Rohan, I need to build those guys as well. And then I at least could start playing, because I've got terrain and stuff, so that's not too bad. If these boxes were one and done, the price would be expensive, but at least a one-time thing. They are starting point, though, to a money pit. Well, I mean, miniature games in general, if you're going to play specifically Games Workshop, that's the way it works. They don't make too many one-off games. Space Hulk is one that they kind of do, but they don't make it that frequently. And I do wonder sometimes if that's why. Like, if they started to keep that in stock more, would they then be like, oh, here's all the extra added stuff you need to really have fun with the game and all that kind of stuff. But in general, Space Hulk is like, boom, here's a box, there you go. Now, when it first started out, strangely enough, that wasn't the case. When it first started out, there was Space Hulk, and then there was an add-on box that you could get called Gene Stealer, and I think there was another add-on box called Deathwing. But when they re-released the third version, third edition or whatever in 2009, they never made anything more for it. And then they did a 3.5, some people refer to it as 4, version in 2014, and they never released anything more for it. And now it's been nearly a decade. It's been 8 years. I kind of hope that they make a new Space Hulk soon. Like I said, I'm thinking about finally painting my 3rd edition 2009 version. My belief is, like, literally the day that I get it finished is the day that they announce that they're making a new version. So, I can either help or hinder in that situation, I suppose. If I get any of the Necromunda pieces, it will be in piecemeal. $300 is a tad too much for some plastic. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, if you're just buying it just because you want the models, yeah, that's kind of, well, I mean, so you get, like, I don't know, like maybe 20 dudes, plus you get some of those guys riding giant bugs, plus you get some dune buggy dudes, and then you get all the terrain. Yeah. I mentioned the Dark Uprising box before that was like $290 a couple of years ago. I feel like that had a good deal more terrain in it. So at least then that was something. But even then, $290, I was like, geez, that's expensive. I was thinking after looking at this, you know, the what they were saying was in the box. I was like, 250 American, maybe 300. I was kind of surprised by, but I guess at this point, you know, I shouldn't be because, you know, inflation and global shipping and blah, 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 all that stuff that we keep hearing about. Except that we also keep hearing about record profits from big companies, not necessarily Games Workshop these days. Their stocks are not doing as gangbusters as they were a year or two ago. But still, you know, it's May Day today. So I'm being a little proletariat, I guess. Let's see here. Quad pod. I don't know what that refers to, but it's fun to say. Quad pod. Ash Waste is 50% terrain you pay for, and I prefer actual models, but will probably make a starter version half price without the terrain and the smaller version of the rules like they did with Kill Team. Maybe. They haven't done a lot of that with Necromunda. Now, they will probably release the models, like the Ash Wastes folks, which are really cool models, by the way. I haven't built any yet, but just from the stuff I've seen online and like looking at the sprues, I'm like, these are cool. I want to build some of these guys just for who knows what. Those models are pretty cool, and they will probably release a box of those separately, because they kind of do that, for sure. Hello from Germany. How you doing? It's players that are bringing up the prices, but I don't blame them. If that's how much they'll pay, that's how much GW would charge. Can't blame people for having the money to be able to buy stuff. Sure. Speaking of building, I might do some building during the stream tonight. Nice. Did you back Rivenstone? I didn't. No. There are some models that I have seen in that line that I'm like, that's kind of cool. I like that. There are a bunch of models in that line that are not to my aesthetic choice. Like, they're not. There's a lot of models in that line that remind me of a cross between the Protectorate of Menoth, I believe is what they were called. They were like the super like religious-y kind of Pope type people in War Machine. It's like you took those guys and you put them into World of Warcraft, and there's a lot of images that I keep seeing in the stuff from that game where that's what they look like, and I'm not super into that look for some reason. So to me, I was like, meh. But some of the undead folks, they're pretty cool. I have actually one of the models, the CEO from CEOcast, because evidently all those models are going to be done in CEOcast, which I've talked about in the past. It's a new type of plastic molding that doesn't refer metal, or doesn't need metal molds. It uses rubber molds, which is way cheaper. What was my point? Oh, yeah. So when I was talking to the CEO guy, he gave me one of those models, and it was from Broken Anvil. I don't know that it's from Rivenstone specifically, but it's from that company. So maybe it is. And it's like this kind of skeleton assassin guy with two swords. And he's got a big cloak, but he's still a skeleton. It's kind of cool. So there's some of that I think is neat, but no, I did not back the Kickstarter or whatever. Played some games of Rain and Hell on Friday night with some friends for their first tabletop game, and they loved it. Now I'm hunting for STLs to make more Cabals. Looking forward to the new game. Nice. Yeah, Rain and Hell is great for looking for cool STLs. You can also go look at like nearly any D&D monster can be a demon. You know, if you believe in yourself. Just take a look at all those like WizKids models and stuff like that they have at your probably local game store. The pre-primed but unpainted ones, you know, from WizKids. Those work great. Hello from the land of Borneo. Glad that it is slowly getting back to normal, bit by bit. And same here. Good morning from Northern Virginia. How you doing? Gloomspite Gets are awesome. New favorite Age of Sigmar faction. They're pretty cool. I've been painting them on Twitch right now for Warcry. Speaking of Warcry, I'm playing Warcry with Sam this afternoon at 3 p.m., so that'll be fun. I'll take some pictures. I agree that the price might not be worth it, and honestly, I am only interested in the tick riders. You know, those bug guys are cool. And maybe the terrain. If you're not going to use the riders, let me know. I will pay for them. I think the bug guys are cool. I don't know what I'm going to use them for, but they're definitely something. Good morning from Rhode Island. How you doing? Painting Aeronautica Imperialis. Space Marines. Nice. I wanted to get back into minis, but I've developed severe carpal tunnel at 30. Oh, that's no good. I dig Age of Sigmar, but I haven't played or worked on anything for it for about a year or so. Gaslands, Battletech are my focus lately, among other projects. It's always good to have, focus. I get that. Morning from Connecticut, trying to knock out some Seraphon heroes for an upcoming tournament. Nice. Uruk-hai Battle Company? Uruk-hai Scouts, actually. So I have a box of Uruk-hai Scouts that I bought. And then the other force for Battle Company that I bought is Warriors of Rohan, not Riders of Rohan. They're dudes on foot. So the thing that's interesting about Battle Company is like the starting base kind of armies that you start with are like literally 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 models tops, which is very cool. So yeah, I like that concept, which is why I'm building some models for it. Just so you know, a Kodiak is a clan assault mech, really nasty one, as big as a scary big. Oh, sure, yeah, okay, the Kodiak, right, yeah, for BattleTech, gotcha. Maybe it was the old kill team problem where you need like 7 guys from 7 different kits. If that's the case, then I'm less interested, obviously, but yeah, you could be right. Pretty stoked to find my local art supply shop had Golden High Flow, Titan Buff, replacement for Wraithbone for airbrush. And the So-Flat paints. The black is supposed to be awesome. Nice. Adam, the new kill team is right up your alley. Why are you not? It's not up actually my alley. It's the game itself is not bad because it's like I've said before a bunch of times. It's basically just a Warcry with stuff attached to it, like added on to the Warcry rule set. But and I made a video about this about how I had 8 completely finished painted Warcry warbands, or sorry, kill team warbands, kill teams, whatever. And then, when the new game came out, 2 of them were legal. So that really threw a wrench in my sales. I don't think that's not a thing. Anyway, yeah, I don't, yeah. So it's, that's why I've been playing Warcry. And like I said, I have a very strong suspicion because I know how to do math. And Warcry came out in 2019 and 2022. This summer will be 3 years. So I have a suspicion that they're going to come out with a new version. And hopefully they don't screw it up and, come out with a compendium and, completely be like, oh, all that old stuff? Yeah, you can't use that anymore, or whatever. That'd suck. So let's hope they don't do that. Models in the MCP core box were horrible to build, but were quite nice to paint. Yeah, I keep hearing that, and it makes me not want to build them, I'll be honest with you. Clearing up my hobby room for selling. It's like the scene from Indiana Jones' Last Crusade, choosing the Holy Grail. That's good. I get that. Cleaning out my nerd bunker this morning to get some inspiration. Hope you enjoyed PAX and our bustling metropolis. I mean, I didn't see much of the bustling metropolis at all. I was pretty much right there in the seaport area, right by the convention center. I did not travel much. On Saturday night, I tried to walk around to try to find a place to eat, and that was hard. Because there were so few places to eat, it felt like, and they were all just packed. I stopped by a place at one point that was it was called the Draft House or the Tap House or something like that. It's supposed to have decent burgers and beer. I'm like, okay, great. That sounds like I'll do that. As I got closer to it, I realized that parked directly in front of it was a bright orange, brand new McLaren. I don't know what kind. I don't know a lot about McLarens. I just know that car probably cost $500,000. So I'm like, well, that's not a good sign. That's, And so I walked in there and I walked up to the hostess and I was like, can I get a seat for one? And she looked at me like I was insane. And she's like, no. I was like, okay, cool. And I just left. I'm like, I eventually did find a place that was kind of like Qdoba or Chipotle, if you're familiar with that, but Asian. And it was lovely. But it was like, I think it's a small chain called Yoki Express or something like that. It was lovely, but I had to walk for a long time to be able to find it. Like, if I wanted to eat at a hotel restaurant, I could do that, but I just wanted to eat someplace different. And it's just that everything was all high-rise buildings and stuff like that in that area, and there wasn't as much, unfortunately. Like, there's just a lot of weird little mom-and-pop pizza places, like, that were within a stone's throw of Gen Con, and I kind of like that part of it, so this was interesting. Now, I know if I would have gotten an Uber or a bus or blah, blah, but right near the convention center, there's not as many places to eat as I would have liked, just from what I could find. But otherwise, everything else was pretty cool, though. I really liked it. I would love to go to a tabletop convention. I would tell you to go to a small one, like look for local tabletop conventions. They are sometimes hard to find, admittedly, but you know, it's a fun thing to do, to go to small local conventions. Just type in tabletop convention and into Google, and very frequently it will show you things that are closer to you, because Google has a tendency to kind of organize things, kind of be like, well, this is close to you, versus like back in the day with Google, if you wanted to type in pizza place and the city, and you didn't type in the city that you lived in, it would just show you whatever the top, you know, listing was for pizza place in the world. So you had to type in pizza place and the name of your town, and then it would show you that. Nowadays, when you just type in pizza place, it shows you the stuff that's nearest to you, because it's like, I'm assuming you don't want to go to a pizza place in Istanbul. Maybe you do, but you know, then you should type in Istanbul, I guess. I'm still regretting not buying Space Hulk back in '96. Oh, sure, yeah. From what Ash said, the Ash Waste rulebook isn't a complete rulebook either. I don't know if it's a regular box or just limited. See, I thought watching it, he was saying it's basically the same rulebook, it's just with added stuff in it. So that's, yeah, I hadn't heard that. Hello from Sweden, howdy. When I realized GW took the house mortgages in payment to build an army, I started to worry. Yeah, well, I mean, you know. Let's see here. Good morning from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Just got my Uncle Adam's favorite brushes from Monument. Looking forward to a long painting session this afternoon. Nice. Thank you very much for buying the brushes. I appreciate that from our friends over at Monument, and that'll be cool. Good morning from Rhode Island. Howdy. Aside from normal GW markup, I imagine Necromunda costs more because they'll sell fewer. Don't have to mark up 40K as much because of the volume. I mean, yes, that's probably part of it too. That's sometimes a real hard sell, though, to convince people, you know, like, well, we're not going to sell as many of these, so therefore we have to charge a lot more for it. People don't go, oh yeah, no, that I totally get that. You should totally, yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? It's hard to convince people of that. I understand that from the business aspect, that's the case, but then from the marketing aspect, people go, oh yeah, no, definitely, we should really help out this multi-billion-dollar corporation. I mean, I get that. It's just, it's weird. It's weird. Rivenstone's scenery is what caught my attention in the promo streams. I guess I haven't really seen it. It's been a lot. I've seen a lot of like kind of like little ruined ruins and whatnot and stuff like that, but I guess I haven't looked at it close enough. Horse box is 2 combat patrol sets equivalent. Yeah, because it's, like I said, it's 40 dudes plus 10. Yeah, probably. Well, then get the tank, though. That big plastic tank is pretty fancy if you're into that kind of thing. The original concept artist for Rivenstone was a Blizzard guy. He just got hired by GW. Oh, so he decided to work for GW instead of working for the Rivenstone people? That's a bummer. If I pick up this box, we'll use models for Zona Alpha, as my son got interested due to the video game Stalker and the book Roadside Picnic. I just made a video about that, actually, on Friday. Just talked about Zona Alpha right there on Friday. It was fun. Pop fantasy style is cool, but decidedly not for me personally. The gun hammer is fun, though. Oh, yeah, there is a gun hammer. That's a good point. Yeah, I just, like I said, the stuff that looks like, I don't know, I mean, World of Warcraft was awesome at the time, you know, and everything like that. But when because I see that this also in 3D models, they like stuff for 3D printing and stuff like that. I'll see a model, I'll be like, that reminds me of World of Warcraft, and I don't want that in my miniatures. I don't know why, I just don't. I think it's, honestly, partially because it's going to be hard to paint. Well, depending on how you do it. Like, if you just do it mostly airbrush, then it's not that hard to paint, but then it kind of looks weird to me. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm glad they hit their goal. Like, they hit their goal super crazy fast. Like, it's something like 3 hours. So, you know, that's great for them. Awesome. But it's not necessarily my interest. Everything scrolled. Sorry. $2.99 for the U.S. In the U.S. for Necromunda. In Germany, it cost $2.25, which is like $2.37. €225. Yeah, I mean, well, just like Australia, not to the same degree, but like, yeah, it costs more for them to send those big boxes over here to America, so we get a big markup on it over. Like, if you're right, if you just took like what it costs in, let's say England in pounds, and then you did the math and then said, oh, well, the conversion rate should be this. It's always considerably more to get to America, and then considerably more to get it over to, say, Australia, New Zealand. So, yeah, that's just the upcharge you get. We had 24 people in our 40K club today. Well, that's pretty cool. Is Reign in Hell just demons, or are there cultists as well? It is just demons. It is demons fighting demons in the ruins of hell. So, yeah. Your videos inspired me to get into Warcry, and now I have my first game soon. Thank you so much. Well, absolutely, Merciful Pepper. That's a fun name. But I'm glad to hear it. Absolutely. For TMX, anyone doing Gaslands yet this year? Not so far. Nope. Been thinking about getting a box of Uruk-hai Scouts to go with the figures that came in the ambush of Amenhen, made to order. We'll have to see what you think of them once you've painted and played. I like the fact that they're almost all of them single-piece models. That's actually quite refreshing. The detail on them is not the craziest, sharpest stuff that Games Workshop's ever done. Admittedly, it's not that sharp, but it's okay. But the fact that they're nice, that they're like single, most of them single figures. Of the 7 that I built, or whatever, I think it was 7 or 8 that I built for my beginning part, one dude had like an extra arm with a shield on it that you had to glue on separately, but the rest of them were all one-piece models, which is, I think, cool. It's just nice. It's fast. Mold lines sort of sucked, but not terrible. But there was a couple in some strange spots, but otherwise decent. Wait, there's a new Space Hulk? There is not. I wish that there was. There should be, but there's not. I mean, unless you're like they came out with one in 2009 and one in 2014. So if you're considering that to be new, then yes, there were, but you can't really get them anymore unless you go on like eBay or something. But hopefully someday they'll come up with another Space Hulk. They should. What really bugs me about Ash Waste is that the book does not even cover vehicles proper. Only the models in that box get rules. All else is relegated to books coming later to buy. I mean, that's kind of Necromunda. Necromunda loves that's Games Workshop. I did a video about this not that long ago. It was a live stream about how they have an addiction to books, and that's the case. So they're going to constantly come out with new books because it's more things for you to buy. So I get that. But you're right. Yeah, it doesn't have, well, I mean, nothing that GW has that produces, it seems, almost ever has the full rules in it, you know. Warcry's not bad on that, but you buy the Warcry book, and then you've got to buy the army book separately because there's one for each of the 4 different Grand Alliances, which is fine to some degree. And those books aren't particularly expensive. They're $35 or $25 depending on the thickness of the book. But I really, really miss the 2018 version of Kill Team where you bought one book and it had most of the armies in it, except for the ones that they hadn't come out with yet. You know, or weird ones like Kroot and stuff like that. But it had pretty much most of the armies in it and also the rules. And I think, and this is going to sound mean, I think they learned their lesson on that, because I think that people bought that going, hey, this is awesome. And then they bought that one book. And then they were like, oh, shoot, now we can't sell them too many more books because we kind of put it all into one book. So they've decided to stop doing that, obviously, as you can see with Warcry and Necromunda and everything else that they produce. So, yeah. I like to be able to buy one book and then play the game. That's, I don't know, call me weird. Get ready to be $5 richer. Yeah. Played a game of Kill Team yesterday. Really enjoyed playing it. However, I started when the new rules came out. I'd like to play the older rule set. The older rule set was fine, and honestly, I don't have a problem with the new rule set. The new rule set, like I said earlier, is basically Warcry, just with extra stuff tacked on, because there's, you know, well, I was going to say there's no shooting in Warcry. There's not much shooting in Warcry. They changed things a bit, but it's based off of the Warcry stuff, where you have an attack, and then you roll maybe 2 dice, maybe 3 dice, maybe 4 dice, depending on your attack, and you're trying to beat a number. Whereas Kill Team 2018 was very much like 40K. It was basically 40K light, and just barely light. the new kill team and 40K have very little in common. The stat lines are nothing like each other, so that's a very different thing. So that's that, you know, which is fine because again, it's still not a bad game. I just don't like, again, and I've said this a bunch of times, if they had released the game and then came out with a compendium as a free download PDF, so that would have been great. But instead, they came out with the game and then charged you $50 for the compendium, and the compendium is not particularly interesting. Like, here's how you build a Space Marine list. You take 5 Space Marines. Done. That's it. Take 5 intercessors. One of them gets to be a sergeant. Nothing. But like, well, what if I wanted one of those guys to have the Hellblaster gun or whatever? Like, no. You can take 5 guys with Hellblasters, I guess, or whatever. I mean, or 3 guys or something like that. But like, the list building in the compendium is ridiculous. Just terrible. And the fact that like my old kill team for Necromunda, I had some warriors, I had some immortals, I had a single death mark in there, had a couple of flayed ones. I really enjoyed the flavor of that list. It was a lot of fun. It was fun to model. Now I can only take 2 of those. I can either take, you know, immortals and warriors, or flayed ones and death marks, or I could take death marks, but you can't take like more than 2 things in any of those lists anymore. And now the interesting lists that give you specializations and stuff like that, you know, medics and veterans and whatnot, that's all stuff that you got to buy later, either in White Dwarf or in the new boxes they release and all that kind of stuff. And so, again, in my opinion, if that compendium had just been a bunch of different PDFs, one for each different faction that you could download and get for free, I wouldn't complain nearly much about it. But the fact that they charge $50 for it and now they're just going through and replacing all the stuff that was in that $50 book is ridiculous. So there we go. Trying to decide which war brands to bring. I think I'm probably going to run Night Haunts myself this Friday or this afternoon. What do you think about the new Slaves of Darkness model? And hello from Philadelphia. Oh, hello from Philadelphia. I've only seen some kind of crappy potato cam images, so I don't really know much about it. I haven't really been paying close attention to the leaks or whatever about the Slaves of Darkness stuff for Age of Sigmar, but I know that it is technically out there. Would you consider LVO a small convention? No, I wouldn't. I mean, it's considerably smaller than Gen Con, considerably smaller than PAX and stuff like that. Still, like, you know, 2019, there was probably 2,500, maybe 3,000 people there. When I'm saying small conventions, I'm talking about gaming conventions that are like 200, 300, maybe 400, 500 people. Those are kind of small conventions in your local area that are good places to start when you want to start getting into conventions and such. PAX Unplugged is in Philly and isn't overwhelming. Highly recommend. Yeah, my wife and I kind of want to go to that at some point. Because, well, partially because her sister lives in Philadelphia, but and it is slightly smaller than the regular PAXs, from what I understand too. Let's see here. Working on a Frameworks Barbarian Dwarf, and I love it, but I accidentally squished down the nose a bit. Lucky me, it just looks like she had her nose broken. I mean, that happens, you know, especially with dwarves. I hate places like that. Say what you will about Florida, but at least they have someone at the door that'll apologize and tell you to go elsewhere. I mean, she was kind of telling me to go elsewhere, I guess. That's fine. I have some sort of cunning ability not to hear about shows and conventions until after they've taken place. I get that. Haven't been to a convention since TwinCon was a thing. Some enterprising person could do one where I-90 and I-35 intersect between the Twin Cities, Des Moines, Sioux Falls, Milwaukee, Chicago-ish. I think that that's up in Miniac's neck of the woods. He and Ninjon could get together and do that. It's got the rules, but it's got all the new vehicle rules. Not all the new vehicle rules. It misses a bunch of add-on stuff from the old rule book, from what I understand. Yeah, I get that. Let's see. You'd have thought that they'd have discounted Ash Wastes a bit, at least got their normal % profit, because they're supposedly got a lot of other releases coming soon to build on it. Yeah, that's the thing too, is that if they're going to release a bunch of extra stuff, you'd think that if they're going to talk about like, well, this isn't going to sell much, well, you're going to have a bunch of other stuff that's coming out to support it as well, so you'll make more money there too. But yeah. Do you think we'll ever get a new Space Hulk? Probably. I have no idea when though. If it was me, it would be soon though. I think it would be smart to do, but you know, what are you going to do? When dry brushing, sometimes I get this chalky effect. For example, on wood, I paint dark brown and then dry brush with tan and it just looks chalky. Am I doing something wrong? I mean, maybe it depends on the paint sometimes. I know some people like to keep the paint a little bit more moist when they're doing dry brush. I don't know. I don't like sometimes like chalky is sometimes a difficult word. Like, is it chalky? Is it dry? There's different options. I don't know. If you don't like it, then I would definitely try to like practice on some other stuff and like try to vary up your paint wetness almost, and see what that does for you. I like buying one book, but will buy extra books, but I want to be able to know what to buy when I start. I don't know what Necromunda wants from me. Yeah, that's a big issue, and I've talked about that in the past. I mean, that's an issue right now with Games Workshop in general, is that if you are a new beginner trying to get into something, it is difficult. Like they need a PDF that says, these are the things you need to buy to start. I think that would scare people away, and I think that's why they don't do it. I think they figure, well, if you go in and just buy this book, and then find out later, oh, you actually need this book and this book as well, then you'll probably either decide to pull the trigger and buy those two other books, or you'll be like, oh, and give up, but we still sold you a book. You know what I mean? Whereas if we were to tell you up front, you need these 3 books and this is how much it costs. Like if you knew going into playing battle companies for Middle Earth, strategy battle game, that you need basically $150 plus worth of books just to play the skirmish game, because you need the battle company, or you need the main book, Middle Earth main rules book, which is like $50. You need the battle company's book, which is like $55. And then you need the army's book that has the good guys and the bad guys in it. Thankfully, that's not 2 books. I'm kind of surprised, actually. And that one's like $50 or $55 as well. Yeah, you need those 3 books to be able to play the skirmish game, which if you told somebody that up front, I think they might be like, well, I think I'll probably try something else. And that's kind of the case. Great video on Friday, by the way. Can't wait to show it to my son tonight. Can I still get a hard copy of Reign in Hell? I want to push my gaming group to try it. Absolutely, yeah. You'll probably always be able to get a hard copy of Reign in Hell because they are print on demand. So, but the quality is so good. Like, as a person who's been looking at this industry for a long time, I can't barely tell the difference between print on demand books and non-print on demand books at this point. When print on demand first came out in the late 90s, you could tell, like from a distance. You'd be like, oh geez, that's, yeah. But now they're really, really, really good quality. So yeah, if you just go to our website, snarlingbadger.com, and you can follow links from there, and you can buy actually the bundle. Basically, if you buy the book, it's $15 plus shipping, but you can also buy the book and also get the PDF, which is also still $15 plus shipping. So we basically, you can buy the PDF for $10, or you can buy the not the hardcover, the hard copy book, and that would cost $15. And then there's also, you can get both, which still also cost $15. We didn't like add them together and say it's $25. We're just like, yeah, if you want to buy the hard copy, you can get the PDF as well. Compendium armies are way less cool than the teams that are releasing in the box kits. Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I mean, that makes sense. You know, I get that. Maybe I'm weird. I like buying a new miniature book. Doesn't matter the system. It's just fun going through the material. Certainly, there's benefits to that too. Sure, if you understand that going in, like I bought a bunch of Merkborg books at PAX actually, because I didn't have to pay shipping then, because nobody carries them around here. But I was at a booth at PAX and I was like, oh, sweet. And it's an RPG, which I'll probably never play, but it is spectacularly fun to read. So there's a big benefit to that. Just join the chat. Does anyone ask you on your thoughts on Rivenstone? Yeah, someone did ask me if I backed the Kickstarter. I've not backed the Kickstarter. The most of the models are not necessarily to my aesthetic. To my aesthetic, whatever. A lot of the stuff looks kind of like World of Warcraft, and which is fine. Yeah, but I don't want that in my miniatures. So but there's like some cool undead guys that are neat. But some of the other guys remind me of the I don't know what I said. Protectorate of Menoth. That was from War Machine. Just like big weird church almost looking, very not jagged, even like smooth but pointy, and just I don't know. It's not my jam. Let's see here. Because of the changes they did to Kill Team, I switched over to one-page rules firefight. A lot more options for troops. Yeah, I think that's an interesting rule system. I mean, I like the one-page rules stuff in general. I love what they're doing with just, the overall everything about it. And I love the fact that now they're producing STLs, so you can be like, oh, I've got this game, but I don't know what I could use these models over here. That's pretty cool. I like that. What are you hoping for announcement-wise, the upcoming Warhammer Fest in May? I know that they've showed that they're going to talk at one point about Warcry. I have no idea what they could release for Warcry right now, unless it was another starter or something like that. I mean, maybe some new factions. Maybe they release a couple new, chaos factions or something like that. That'd be fine, I guess. Or maybe even some cool monsters, kind of like the Ogroid Myrmidon and some of those guys, like they could release a couple of new monsters. That'd be pretty cool. And then maybe have some scenarios for those. That could be kind of neat. Yeah, that's about it though. I don't know. Maybe if I'm right and they're going to produce a new game, a completely new version and put it out this summer, then they may announce that in May. That would be kind of, or at least tease it. It's possible. But we'll see. Dragonfall Con. Yep, Dragonfall is a great small little tiny, well, not tiny, but it's a small miniatures. Well, that's the thing. Most small conventions, tabletop gaming conventions in your area will be a mixture of stuff like board gaming and RPGs and this and that, and some miniatures and stuff. Thing's cool about Dragonfall, which is in Wisconsin, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, in the fall, hence the name, is that it's predominantly miniatures. Like there's some other stuff that's starting to kind of come in, some board games and a little bit of RPG stuff, but it's mostly miniatures, which is cool. Greetings from Baton Rouge. How you doing? I like to get to a games convention, primarily to access the vendors, not really play games, though I could see myself trying some demos. Demos are a great reason to go to gaming conventions, because then you can try out games that you've been thinking about. You can watch battle reports and stuff like that, but sometimes it's hard to get as good of a gauge as actually just sitting down for a demo. I was really glad at PAX to be able to run, like, one of the reasons I went to PAX was because I was going there to run a demo of Rain in Hell. I was running demos. I ran some on Thursday, and then I ran some on Saturday as well. But the Thursday one, the reason I kind of went to PAX was to run a demo for Jerry Tycho. If you're familiar with PAX, it's the Penny Arcade Expo, and if you're familiar with Penny Arcade, that's the web comic, and they started these conventions, and now they're all over. There's 3 in the United States, I think, or 2 in the United States, and 1 in Europe, and 1 in Australia. I don't know. Well, there's 3 in the United States because PAX Unplugged is the one that's just basically all tabletop games, whereas PAX East is like half and half video games and tabletop games. It was actually really surprising. It was pretty cool. But these are some pictures I had that I posted on Twitter, which is why I got them here. But yeah, this was the there we go. This was the PAX Convention Center from outside. It was lovely and sunny in Boston at that time, so that was nice. But yeah, so when I showed up on Thursday, one of the first things I did was run a demo for This is Tycho, aka Jerry. His actual name is Jerry, but you know him as Tycho in the comic. And then Kiko, who has been working with them forever, for 20 years or something like that. And he's like their lead graphic designer, lead visual designer kind of guy. Yeah, and then you can kind of see him down over here in the corner underneath Kiko's chin. That's Eric Benson, the notorious EJB. He is, if you've ever watched on their Twitch streams, they do a show called Acquisitions Intoxicated, where they basically work up beer brewing. Like they don't do the brewing there on, but they talk about like, we're going to add this and we're going to do this, and it's a bunch of different recipe making, and then they produce these beers and whatever. And so usually it's him. Also, he's in a lot of the painting streams that they've been doing lately too. Eric, he's a super nice guy. He was at Adepticon. But yeah, so we were. It was a super cool, big, huge, giant, crazy place, though, this convention center. It was really neat. But yeah, so Kiko and Jerry got to play with them for a couple hours, and it was a lot of fun. And there's us at the end. My mask was riding way up underneath my glasses, but then it doesn't fog up that way. So I don't know. Either way, I think smiling also raises it too. We were all smiling there. It was a good time. But yeah, there was just a lot of amazing stuff going on there. I had never been to PAX before. But it is very large. And Kiko was telling me that this year was probably at about 2/3 what it was at 2019 because of the pandemic. It was required proof of vaccination for this convention, probably 50 to 60,000 people at least, but it was still required proof of vaccination, and also everybody had to wear masks. So now that being said, just because of the way that these things work, there were still people that got some COVID and stuff like that. I came back from Adepticon, which didn't require masks, but some people wore them and some people didn't. I wore them on and off. I came back not with COVID, but I did come back with kind of a cold, which was no fun. But that's just the way it's going to kind of work, at least for a while in these big conventions. I don't know what the plans are for Gen Con. Gen Con last year required masks the entire time, did not require proof of vax. I don't know what they're doing this year. The proof of vax thing actually worked pretty well here because they had a lot of people outside who were like checking that stuff, and they would give you a green wristband that looked like this that says PAX on it, and then you had to keep that on you, and then they knew that you had been thing. But there was also an app that you could go on. It's called the Clear app, and you could go on ahead of time and stuff like that and put in your information, and then you could just show that when you were walking in, and they would just say, okay, cool. So that was also helpful. But like basically this whole area here, like this is coming down the escalator, and this is just all video games. But if you see like in the kind of middle of the image, there is this kind of walkway. They call it the sky walk or something like that. I don't know. But it's this walkway that kind of cuts the building, this part of the building in half. From there back all the way to the back of the building, it was just all tabletop. So are we back? Might be back. There we go. Are we back? Maybe. I don't know what happened, but I think we're back. Yay! There we go. All right. I have no idea what happened. I blame Twitter. Let's just do that. That sounds like a good idea. I guess I should never look at Twitter before. Anyway. Let's see here. Frozen, thought it was just me. Deep breaths. All right. So anyway, long story short is Twitter is bad, and conventions are cool, but it's not a bad idea, I think, to definitely look at small conventions sometimes first. Video just came back in now. I'm good with blaming social media. Can we blame Elon Musk? Yes. Yes. I definitely think we can do that. But yeah, so it was a great convention. I don't know when things got cut off, but it was fun to hang out with Jerry and Kiko. Actually, on Thursday night, I was at the hotel bar at the hotel that I was staying at, which was like right across the street from the convention center. And then Jerry and Eric, who I mentioned earlier, came into the hotel bar looking for a cocktail, I assume. And then we ended up hanging out there. And so it was really nice to hang out there for a while as well. But I also got to talk to a bunch of different people who, you know, even though with the masks, I still got recognized here and there. And so that was nice. It was good to talk to people there. I did buy a miniature, one single miniature. I bought which I was kind of proud of myself that I didn't buy more stuff. There wasn't a ton of miniature stuff there. There was a lot of board game stuff, to be honest, but there was some. And I bought a miniature from a company called 1985 Games, which is this cool weird skeleton kind of guy who's about probably 6 inches tall, made out of resin. I might paint him on Twitch, but yeah. Do you listen to the guys over at LATC? They always talk so highly of you and your channel, and I wonder if you ever listen to them. Oh, I'm friends with those guys. Yeah, I know. I was talking to them at, we hung out a bit at Adepticon. I would have liked to have hung out more, but there was just so much stuff going on. But yeah, no, those guys are great. I've been on the show several times, I think, at least a couple times. But yeah, I listen to them sometimes while painting, and Vince has been on there before, I'm pretty sure. I know Goobertown's been on there several times. Goobertown's been working with them on, Brent's been working on them because they also have a live play RPG, like Dungeons and Dragons thing. 20-Sided Realms, I believe, is that podcast, and I think this is their second season. I think Brent is one of the people that's playing with them, so that's very cool. Yeah, no, the guys from LATCS, the Life After the Cover Save. I get, because I listen to Life After the Cover Save and I listen to Last Podcast on the Left, and so it's LPOTL and the LATCS, and it gets me confused sometimes. But yeah, I listen to those guys. They're great. All right. Anyone in Boston want to play games today? I'm visiting, so I'll also need to borrow an army too. Well, there you go. See, you don't know unless you ask. Why do you recommend smaller conventions over big ones? Well, they're considerably cheaper, usually. Now, unless you live by a big convention, like if you live in Boston or nearby, and it's a very simple thing for you to go into, to the convention, hang out, and then come back home and sleep at night. Great. But one of the things about going to big conventions in big cities, and also is sort of the same with even going to small conventions in cities that you don't live near, is travel, hotel cost, food. When you go to a small convention, usually, even if you travel, the convention, the hotel's cheaper, the food is cheaper, stuff like that, because they're usually in smaller towns and things like that. When you go to big conventions, like your Gen Con and whatnot, and that kind of stuff, then hotels considerably more expensive and hard to get in many situations. I was surprised at how easy it was to get the hotel room that I got at PAX. With Gen Con, all the downtown hotels that are even anywhere near close to it sell out like instantly. They have to have with Gen Con, they have to have a lottery system where basically you buy your ticket to go to Gen Con, like your badge, and then there's a couple days before a certain day, like it's usually a Sunday, and so like on a Friday they will send you a code or something like that, or they'll send you a time and say you can now go to the housing website at this time on Sunday, and then that's when you can first get a hotel room. So you can't then, so it's like if it tells you, oh yeah, the first time, like it starts at noon, but you get to look at a hotel room at 4, well, you'll be getting a hotel room up by the airport then. You can try getting hotels outside of what's known as the housing block at bigger conventions. You usually pay more, and sometimes they're also wary. They're like, no, actually, we're all booked up for that day, even though they're not yet, but they know that they have that stuff blocked aside because they know it's going to sell out. So it can be hard at big conventions like that to get housing. And like I said, sometimes it's real hard to find food, or the food's just very expensive and that kind of stuff. Whereas at smaller conventions, it's a little bit easier. Even if you're traveling to a smaller convention, you're paying $60-$70 maybe for a hotel room instead of like $250. And you can find concession food even that's cheaper and stuff like that. So it depends. Hey, there's Life After the Cover Save. We hate him. Well, that's not very nice. I hope you guys are doing well. And then there's Ninjan. There you go. Alrighty. Yeah, I don't know what the heck just happened. It was so weird. Like all of a sudden it just, like everything cut out. But I don't think I had an internet outage because I could still see people chatting and all that stuff. So that wasn't, I don't know. It was very strange. I really want to see Squats versus Tyranids Kill Team box or new Space Hulk. The recent Tyranids Combat Patrol is a huge letdown, zero variety. Well, I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know. Yeah, Tyranids are not, there's a decent amount of variety. I don't know why they would make that box like that, so that's a good question. I have exactly 11 unpainted minis. I want to strip some others, though. I'm a perfectionist and a procrastinator, though. That's a very specific number of minis. Wow. Let's see here. Do you happen to know the guy on Dice Chatter? He hasn't posted in 6 months or so. Don't worry, you're still my favorite. I've not even heard of Dice Chatter, so I don't, unfortunately. Looking forward to the Warhammer US Open since it's coming to my city, not going to be small. So that's good. So if it's in your town, then yeah, like if you live in like Indianapolis or Boston or Seattle or Washington, D.C., or Las Vegas, or some of the other ones, then yeah, definitely. Thankfully, Gen Con is local for me. I'm spoiled and dreading my move to the Pacific Northwest. I mean, if you want to still keep going to Gen Con, yeah, it will make it more difficult. But, Pacific Northwest is nice, too. And then you can go to PAX West or Prime or whatever they call it these days. Thankfully, I lucked out with my Gen Con lottery. Yeah, I go with a bunch of guys. So we always get, there's 8 of us, I think, this year that go. So amongst the 8 of us, one of us got a really good time, which is generally the way it works, which is why we usually go with a bigger group. And then you can get a room. So we're staying in, it sounds very fancy. And it's a nice, big, huge, giant room. It's called a presidential suite. And it's at the Hilton. I think it's the Hilton. And I was about 2 blocks away, so it's not terrible, but it's not like across the street. But like this hotel room it's got 2 bathrooms. It's only got 1 bedroom. It's got a pull-out couch. It's like, I don't know, 1,100 square feet or something like that. I'm still sleeping on a blow-up mattress on the floor because there's so many of us, and that's fine. But, it's also, when you take that cost for that much more huge, expensive room, but you split it 8 ways, then it comes down to being cheaper. So if you can pull that off, it's not a bad way to go. There's a lot of benefits for it. Debating going to Gen Con for just Sunday. I live about an hour away. May have never been to a con before. Sunday's not a bad day. It's usually pretty busy, but it's not too bad of a day. I need like $1,000 Australian to do conventions. I've only done it once for a Magic the Gathering Grand Prix. Yeah, I can understand that, especially if you're going to the bigger cities and stuff. Question, will you make any content about the McFarlane or other affiliate action figures of tabletop games like Warhammer? Love to hear your opinion on them. I have this guy here. This is a McFarlane figure, isn't he? Yeah, this is a McFarlane guy. I got this not that long ago from Amazon, maybe? I don't know. It was one of those deals where I was like buying something on Amazon. They're like, hey, people who buy this also buy this. And I was like, it was like $20 in comparison to the one from Bandai, which is, I don't know where that guy is. Anyway, that guy was like $100. Now, admittedly, he's painted, but still, yeah. So I've got this one guy. I don't know what I'm going to do with him at any point, but I don't know that I would make content about it per se, just because it's not necessarily my, it's not really about, it's about Warhammer, I guess, but it's not really about miniatures or miniature gaming, wargaming. He's miniature in comparison to a full-sized, Primaris. I guess there's that. But yeah, I don't know. I've looked at some of those and I've been like, oh yeah, look at that. I don't know why I bought that guy unpainted. It's not like I'm ever going to paint him. I guess maybe I might, but it seems unlikely. I don't know. Shameless plug for TotalCon in the Metro West area of New Mass. 4 days of gaming, great people, and affordable rooms outside of Austin. See, I like the kind of smaller stuff like that. Those are the conventions I also dig a lot too. My favorite convention still is Adepticon. Probably always will be. That being said, I do enjoy going to small conventions because they're a lot of fun too. I once tried gaming at DragonCon. Oh, that doesn't sound like a good idea. it was quite confusing for me. I found myself having a lot more fun at the panels and other activities. Yeah, Dragon Con in Atlanta, from what I understand, is not particularly a gaming convention. It's a, I don't know exactly what kind of convention it is, but there's it's a lot of cosplay and stuff like that. But yeah. Will you make any plans to come over to Salute in the next couple of years? I mean, I would like to, but I don't know. We were planning. My wife and I were going to try to go to the UK in 2020, and that didn't work, obviously. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. It was the gremlins in the tech, Adam. I deal with those little bastards on a daily working in the Navy as a contractor. Yeah, I get that. Squats versus Gene Stitcher cult would be cool. I just want the squats. Like, I'm going to not use them for 40K or anything. I'm going to use them for other games. But I just think like that one that they've showed so far, I'm like, yes. And I know a lot of people have complained about that squat because they're like, he doesn't look like a dwarf, you know, like they're like, he doesn't have like a long beard and like a battle stein and speak Scottish and what, you know, all that kind of weird stuff or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know that space dwarves need to look like that anymore. I know that there are some Necromunda squats that you can get like from Forge World that basically look like what you would think of as dwarves, but I kind of don't want that. I want a faction in 40K, frankly, that is not a kind of walk and talk and stereotype a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of want them to be, I don't know. I want them to be different, I guess. And I don't want them just to be space dwarves. I want them to be something different. And just the model I've seen so far in my mind, I think is interesting. He's not super crazy over the top, and I'm okay with that. But that's again, like I said, I'll probably end up using him in other games. But I think that he's kind of cool. Anyone played Lobster Pot? I don't even know what that is. No. Is it a board game? Sounds like a board game. Or maybe a card game. I could see that. Is any convention near Cleveland? There are some websites out there that you can check for that kind of stuff. Steve Jackson Games has a convention website that people can put their listings in. Who else does? There was a convention website called Warhorn, like horn, like toot-toot-toot, you know, like that kind of horn. Warhorn.net, I think, might be one. Tabletop.events is another place to check for that kind of thing. Yeah. 11 unpainted. Is that thousands or hundreds? I get that. Let's see here. Did you see any of the March on VictoryCon pictures coverage that focused on small skirmish miniatures games? I did not. I've marched to VictoryCon. I have not heard of that place. Sunday Gen Con is great. I think it's the only day I've ever gone to, says Tom. I usually go all 4 days. Well, technically we get there usually on Wednesday and then leave actually on Monday morning. But Sunday is a good day. It is also, though, in the past, and I don't know about going forward, but in the past, it's very frequently family day too. So when you go to Gen Con and it's family day, there's a lot of people pushing around strollers, which just takes up more space in a place that's already kind of cramped, especially like, again, like I said, 2019, there was 72,000 people at Gen Con. So it gets tight. Last year, 2021, they like capped attendance at about 35,000. So they halved it basically. I don't know if they're planning on doing that this year. I don't think so. I honestly don't know. I haven't kept close attention to like what they're doing as far as, like I said before, masks, vax, all that kind of stuff coming up. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm like, there's no reason almost in my mind for me to even think about it until we get just before then, because then I'll know, oh, I got to bring a bunch of masks, or I'm probably going to do that anyway in any situation. But, you know, there's just different things like that where you kind of want to, like, because the things may change. I mean, who knows? The numbers may go way up again. They may go way down. You know, all kinds of things can happen between now and August. So there's that. I remember the one and only Gen Con I attended. I picked up like 5 boxes of classic AD&D first edition minis for like $2 a box. Nice. Frankly, there are bugger all cons in Australia, and the few we do have aren't at good times of the year. Like, are they in the winter, or is it too hot in the summer, or I don't know. Did you buy a Fez or wrong convention? PAX doesn't have the Fez people. Usually it's Gen Con. That's usually where I pick up my Fezes, is at Gen Con. There is a booth there called Fezorama, and they are based out of, I think, Seattle, but might be San Francisco. West Coast someplace. I think Seattle. Anyway, I'm hoping they come back again this year because they were not there last year, so I was unable to buy a Fez in 2021. Would you still recommend going to a con with a large group? As an older guy, I used to go to cons a lot as a younger guy, but now that I'm getting up there, it's much harder to set up. I mean, a big group, we're lucky in that we have this group that's been going kind of the same for quite some time. Like, there's a core of maybe 6 folks that go always, and then there are some folks that kind of come in and leave and whatnot. So we're always hovering around 8 or 9, but one year, like, this guy won't be here and this guy won't be there, but this guy will and this guy will, and then next year those folks, that kind of thing. So but that's not obviously what everybody does. That's a bit unique. I would say that it's a good idea to go with somebody. I think the one downside to PAX is I basically went by myself, and so I didn't really know, like I said, I hung out with Jerry, with Tycho, and Eric, and a bit on Thursday night. But then other nights it was basically like I don't know. There were some events here and there that I would kind of check out and whatnot. And I walked around the place in the evenings a little bit too, but otherwise there wasn't a lot going on for me. Like, but hanging out with somebody is always nice. So there's that too. Really interested to see how squats play out. I'd like to see them with a different style armor, but hard agree on the sidestep of the stereotype. Yeah. Eventbrite is good to check. Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good point too. Yeah. I still have my squat army for Epic, and as an old school squat player, I'm happy with the new stuff. Nice. It's good to hear. There's a small 40K tournament in June near me, but I only own 1,000 points, not the 2,000 points needed for that. Yeah, and that's going to be tough to get another 1,000 points done in time for June, but there's always next year. You know what I mean? Please paint that on Twitch. I want to see your take on it, as I have the same model and was thinking of painting mine as a Space Wolves army. I thought you were talking about that big skeleton, so that's probably not. Which one are you talking about there, Colonel? I want to see your take on it, as I have the same model and was thinking about painting mine as a Space Wolves army. I don't know which model you're referring to there. Sorry. The last model I remember saying I might paint on Twitch was the big skeleton guy. Let's see here. Waiting to buy my Rain in Hell Fez. Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna. I've talked to the Fez people about working with them on a Fez design, but they're not just like, oh, we'll just throw a logo on, we'll just throw your logo on a Fez and sell it. They're like, we'll work with you on a Fez, and we would like to do that, but it's got to be a little bit more creative and stuff like that and everything. And I just haven't, like I do want to talk to them again. Like, if they're at Gen Con this year, I definitely want to sit down and say, look, let's do something. And I kind of want to do what I'm going to refer to as a Fez starter. So the idea I want to float to him is basically like, we come up with the design, you make one Fez for photo purposes and stuff like that, and then we take a pre-order sort of situation, and then we know how many we get, and if we don't get X amount of pre-orders and it doesn't happen, blah, 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 whatever, and then, there you go. And I want to see if that would be a thing that they would be interested in doing. Because they have worked with people in the past, I get that. I'm waiting to judge the dwarves until I see a squad in exo armor. The older ones were thicker than they were tall. I like that. Yeah. Warcry Warband for Oryx. Got any suggestions? Thanks. I've heard that the brutes are really good. Now, if you're building a group of brutes, you're looking at like 5 models probably, which can put you in a situation, because when you only have 5 models, then it's real hard to take 4 objectives. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. That game, I think, even though they're like super crazy hard to shift, and they're very, very thick, and they're very, very like, they can take a ton of damage, They also can't move very quickly, and having more models and being able to move quickly is, at least as far as Sam and I think, is probably a little bit of a better idea in some situations. So we did a video about how to like get into Warcry as far as like some kind of simple strategy for building your warband. You can watch that on YouTube. I think it's the last Warcry video I've done, or the most recent Warcry video. New squats need bikers with mullets. I don't want any bikers, honestly. Maybe I've asked this before, but do you have any suggestions for simple snow effects for bases? I want to make progress. My bolt action winter Germans, and snow feels like an appropriate addition. I know GW makes something called something or other Tundra, and I've seen Sam use that for pretty good results. It's like a texture paint, but it's bright white, and I can't remember the name. It's one of those where they like use one of their own specific copyrightable names and then call it something else, like, you know. I mean, I don't know. They also call some of them Armageddon Dust, which I don't think you can copyright either of those names, but maybe you can. But it was something or other Tundra, and that's what I've seen Sam use before. He did a video on my channel a number of years ago about snow bases, so you could search for that too and find that. It was a pretty good one. Oops, scrolled the wrong window. Let's see here. Just wondering if you own a static grass applicator. I do not. I don't really like static grass. I don't know, but I don't have an applicator. I've seen them. They're kind of interesting, but I have not bought one. Just tuning in. Is Gen Con a good trip to go to if you missed Adepticon? It's a very different convention. Adepticon is 6,000-ish people, 6,000, 6,500, something like that. And everything there is miniatures. Pretty much everything there is just miniatures, miniatures, miniatures. Gen Con is, well, back in the before times, 2019, Gen Con was 72,000 people. And it is, of the 4 genres of tabletop gaming, you got your board games, your RPGs, your miniatures, and your collectible card games, let's say, Magic the Gathering, Pokemans, and such. I would say miniatures is the smallest of them as far as representation at Gen Con. I would say miniatures is probably the smallest amongst the 4 of them if you're talking about representation. But if you're talking about sales, actually, miniatures sells, like, miniatures makes more money than RPGs, even though RPGs are wildly popular. But it's because RPGs, you need a book, maybe some dice. There you go. Maybe you need 2 books. If you're the DM, maybe you need 3 books. You don't need a lot of stuff. So even though there's tons and tons and tons and tons of people playing RPGs, and Critical Role is, you know, knocking them dead and the whole deal like that, it actually does not make nearly as much money as miniatures, because miniatures obviously cost a lot of money, right? You know, board games, you're dropping 60 to 80 bucks on every board game that you buy, and then you build an entire wall of board games that you have behind you in your videos, and that's fine. But that's, so yeah, that's the difference there. I swear that it's like biggest moneymaker is, I think, collectible card games, then board games, then miniatures, then RPG. That was at least a report that I saw in 2019. I think I'm getting that right, from ICV2, which is a big industry website, icv2.com. Anyway, long story short is Gen Con is not a huge hotbed. There's a decent amount of miniature play going on there, I would say, but there's far more RPG and board game. But I still really like the convention. Admittedly, I'm also doing business and stuff like when I'm there, and I'm hanging out with friends as well. I'm hanging out with the guys that I go with and stuff, so that's also a lot of fun. If I was not hanging out with those guys, and if I wasn't going there to do business, I probably wouldn't go every year. You know, I made a video about that a long time ago too, about how I was like kind of planning on like not going to Gen Con much anymore. But then I started getting a lot of people saying, "Hey, let's," you know, like, you know, manufacturers like, "Hey, let's have a meeting at Gen Con. Let's talk at Gen Con," that kind of stuff. And so I get that with Adepticon to some degree as well. Not good time of the year equals over the Christmas, New York. Oh yeah, New York, New Year's. Yeah. No, that is an odd time. There are some conventions that happen sometimes in the States where you're just like, really? You're going to do that over 4th of July weekend? Don't you think a lot of people go to the cottage or what? Yeah, I don't do stuff with their family. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of odd too. And then there's Adepticon and GaryCon, which for the last, I don't know, 5 years have always been the same weekend. They're like, I don't know, hour and a half drive from each other. But GaryCon is like this big RPG convention, not huge, like not Gen Con, not PAX, but a well-known RPG convention taking place in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is where Dungeons and Dragons started. But it's happening the same time as Adepticon. It's been the same time for years, and I don't understand why they don't like try to split that up a little bit, but they don't. Hey, James S., how you doing? Just my opinion, but I love the old space dwarf aesthetic, like Forge Fathers, heavy armor walkers, metal beards. Yeah, I mean, and that's cool. I don't like the metal beards and all that kind of stuff, but I think I'm glad that different companies do it different ways. I'm just excited to see these kind of like relatively kind of normal, almost slightly sensible looking models coming out of Games Workshop. And I know a lot of people are like stunned by that, but it's fine. It's an impressive looking beard. It might need a fez. I don't think I can put a fez on the beard. Actually, I do need to trim. What if a tabletop game featured monsters like Pokemon or Digimon, which could evolve, swap out the models for a stronger one during the game? Well, here's the deal. So, like, we have evolution in Reign in Hell. You have demons that start as lesser demons and then can, over the course of the campaign, evolve into greater demons and then superior demons. So they do have that, and they gain extra abilities and things like that as they kind of progress, evolve, like the Pokemons. The thing that I don't personally, as a modeler, like is when I have to take a miniature that I've been using during a campaign and then get rid of it and put in a different miniature. Like, everything that Vince and I are generally trying to do in our game design is there's going to be, you can get a better, not necessarily get a better weapon. When we explain it, we're like, oh, you get an add-on to a weapon. So like for our sci-fi game that's coming up this summer, if you at some point you get some new piece of tech, it's not like you go and you had a sniper rifle before and now you have some sort of like energy shotgun or some junk that I just made up, because me as a person who's really into WYSIWYG very frequently is going to be like, yeah, but that's still a sniper rifle. I know that guy now has an energy shotgun, but that's still a sniper rifle, and it drives me nuts. And I've got friends who've been in the same situation back in the days of Gorka Morka and have been like, well, now I have to make a new guy because this guy's now got a power claw and his initial model didn't, you know what I mean? But now he's got a power claw, so now I got to make a model with a power claw. And then the old guy, throw that guy in the, shoebox or whatever. So with us, we always want to make it so that you're basically adding on to the weapons that you already have, so you don't have to redo the model. In this situation of an evolution, it's kind of the same thing. Like, I personally wouldn't want to have to be like, oh, now I have to make a new model. And I know a little tiny bit about the Pokemons. My wife likes to play the Pokemon Go, and I think I played one of the original either red or blue games on the Game Boy, like Pocket, which was like the still black and white, but slightly slimmer than the original chunky Game Boy. I played that way back in college for a while, and so I know a little bit about original kind of that stuff. But yeah, if there was the physical drawing or whatever, the model of a Pokemon when it does evolve changes. It still is reminiscent, but like it is a changed thing. So if you dig that as a player, cool. But I personally, as a modeler, I'm like, once I've finished putting my time into this model, I don't want to have to change him. So for us, with Reign in Hell, when they do evolve and become superior, they basically are the same as they were. They just now have a different skill. And I think that's, from a modeling standpoint, it's an easy way to do it. Now, if we were selling the models, well, of course we'd want the models to like change, and you'd have to update. Well, you went from this power to this power, now you got to buy this new model, and that guy costs $35. I get that from a business aspect, but like I've said many times before, I'm not a very good capitalist. So, been a long time since I caught a stream. Howdy, James Bruce. Working on some Lion Rampant minis. So have you considered coming to the UK for some conventions? Bring a raincoat. I was talking about that earlier. My wife and I were thinking about going to the UK in 2020. So that didn't happen. We still would like to try, though. We would still like to eventually come. I would try to make it kind of a sort of a half and half, like business trip, like, you know, maybe visit Nottingham and go to, you know, some of the places there, and just different stuff like that, stuff for the channel, but then also go and do other kind of touristy things. If we could also make it happen during Salute, would probably be what I would want to do, instead of UK Games Expo would be fine, but that one again is like a lot more into the miniature, a lot more into like the general tabletop stuff from what I understand. But Salute would be kind of interesting. So yeah, and Salute's like a 1-day thing still, is it? Or did they switched it into 2 days? So just, you know, it wouldn't take up that much of the trip, I guess is my point, you know. What are you hoping for most in Warcry on this week's GW Fest Online? I would say like probably, if I had to, I would be interested in doing, I hope that they make some more creatures kind of like the weird Minotaur dude and that weird cat guy and whatever that other big chunky guy is. Like, I'd like to see some stuff like that. If they're going to do a new version of the game this summer, they may tease it at this thing because it's May. They may even do more than tease it. It's early May. If I had to guess, if they're following the numbers that they usually follow, I bet if they do come out with a new version, it'll come out in late July, because like Warcry 2019 came out in late July. Kill Team 2021 came out in late July. 2018 Kill Team came out in late July. You know, that kind of stuff. So I would suspect they would do it roughly the same time, and if they did, then they may announce it already here in May, but they may not. I don't know yet. I'm back with my Cubano and Muffin con Arenandos. What did I miss? Were you here when the stream went down for a sec and then came back up? I mean, it technically never went down. Like, it went down on my end, and you guys couldn't see it, but it didn't disconnect. It didn't, like, shut off. And then I had to, like, kind of poke at it a bunch and get it started again on my end. I don't know. It was weird. Valhallan Blizzard. Is that the color? I think that's... Yeah, it's either Tundra or Blizzard, but it's one of the two. Yeah, Valhallan. That makes sense. I'm totally in for a Tabletop Minions Fez. I'm way behind. I apologize. Currently waiting on some British riflemen from Silver Bayonets for Wargames Atlantic. I got some Wargames Atlantic models for the last war from Forbidden Psalm. The Kickstarter, from what I understand, the release of the PDF should be in mid-May, so coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to that. I did that's a Kickstarter I did back. It's like weird World War I, and based off of the Forbidden Psalm game that they released back a couple of years back, which is a miniature game, like skirmish game based off of Merkborg, as I mentioned before. Anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So hopefully sometime in the next couple of weeks, not only will us Kickstarter backers get our PDF, and then the book will be coming later, the actual physical copy, but I think that it'll be available to finally start buying as well on places like Wargame Vault and such. White Scars is so chalky and lumpy you can use as a texture paint. Yeah, I've never had any luck with any dry paint ever from Games Workshop. Anytime I ever open, like, I bought a couple of dry paints from them in the past thinking, oh, this will be useful, and then you open it up and you're like, oh no, this is just a piece of chalk just rolling around inside this thing. Like, it's just dry like a stone, and I've not had good luck with it. So, you know, it's a bummer. A single Savage Auric box contains 20 models, so it's great for building up a Warcry warband with a lot of options. Plus, they are not as slow as Iron Jaws. I know, but I like the Iron Jaws better. Like, just the look of them. I know it's not probably the best plan, but I like the look of the Iron Jaws better. They are slow as hell, though. It's true. Let's see here. Thanks for the information. I'm big into trading card games as well, so it sounds like it'd be a good content to go to. Oh, yeah, like... any convention, if you're into multiple types of tabletop games, like I'm predominantly just into miniatures, but if you're into miniatures and RPGs, or miniatures and board games, or miniatures and RPGs and board games, or miniatures and, you know, collectible card games, then going to like a general tabletop convention like a Gen Con or something smaller like Origins or whatever makes total sense, because then you get to have access to all those things. It's when you're real specific like I am, then it doesn't make as much sense to go, but you still can have a good time. Hope you're having a lovely Sunday. It's not too bad. Gonna be going over for lunch over at the in-laws a little bit later on. I'll be getting some of the bulldogs for Stargrave for sure, though. Bulldogs. I don't know what the bulldogs are. I just pre-ordered. There's a new Stargrave miniature set. Is it Soldiers 2 or Crew 2? I don't know. It's a second set of one of the sets they already did, because they've done Crew. I don't remember what the 3 sets are currently for Stargrave. Like Crew, Mercs, and something else. And then now there's a 4th set, but it is basically another set of one of the ones they already did. It's just different models and stuff like that. I can't quite remember. But I pre-ordered it from a localish place that has an online store, because I hadn't seen it anyplace else. And I could order it from England and I'd be fine, but then it's way more in the shipping. So yeah, pre-ordered it from these folks, and then I won't have to pay as much for shipping. So that's good. Just got your brush set from Monument Hobbies. Looking forward to using them this week. Nice. Thanks for ordering those. I appreciate it. I guess Gary has a feud with Adepticon. I don't think so. I don't know why they do it. It doesn't seem like, I don't know. I don't understand why they do that, the scheduling at the same time, but they always do. RPGs got me into wargaming. Still like to throw some dice around from time to time. You would think Games Workshop would still make their RPGs. Well, I mean, they like books a lot, so yeah, it is kind of surprising. Well, they licensed that out. I mean, there was a 40K. There's been a couple different 40K RPGs, but they've been made. One was made by Fantasy Flight for a hot second, and there was another that was made by, I forget who. I don't remember the company that made that, the most recent one. And then there's also an Age of Sigmar one that's called Spellbound or Spell something. Soulbound. Anyway, that one is made by Cubicle 7, Level 7, something 7. And so there are RPGs out there for that. They just license them out to somebody else so they don't have to mess with it, I guess, as far as the actual... Because otherwise you got to have people to write that stuff, too, and create all that jazz. So the licensing thing makes sense. So there are some RPGs. They're just not made by specifically Games Workshop or James Workshop. They're made instead by somebody else that then, you know, does the licensing. That's why I like the Nameless in Dead Zone. They are more gribbly than NIDS, the GW style. Interesting. Okay. I've been seeing less and less of Conflict 47. Is it just dying out because of lack of players? I mean, I think that there is something to be said about the concept that a game has to have constant releases, otherwise it's dead. And I think that what I need to say about that is that's not right. As long as you can still get the stuff for Conflict 47, then it's not dead, you know? Now the question is that are they actually stopping producing the stuff that they've already made? Just because they're maybe not coming out with new stuff, maybe they're like taking a break for a while and working on some other projects, and they're going to come back to it. But as long as they keep the stuff in production so that you can still get it, then the game's not dead. I feel like the big companies, specifically Games Workshop, but other companies like, you know, Fantasy Flight and all that kind of stuff, have kind of given us all this idea that, well, if we don't constantly make new stuff for this game, then the game must be dead. You know what I mean? So, because we had people like, seriously, like when we released Reign in Hell, it was like March 26th or March 28th. I think it was March 28th of 2021. So it's almost coming up on a 1-year mark. We had people already asking us like, well, so when's the next release? We were like, no, that's not the plan. We don't. Now, we did have a second release, kind of. We did have The Oculus Rift, no, the Oculus Spear, that's a totally different thing altogether. Oculus Rift is a bunch of goggles that you look at stuff, but Oculus Spear was the name of the expansion. And the Oculus Spear was an expansion that we didn't plan on doing. We did it because we did not put solo and co-op rules into the original game. We had a lot of people ask us about that, so we're like, okay, cool. Now, we're hoping this next game, we're planning on not making an expansion for it because we're going to have the solo and co-op rules built in from the beginning, and that's fine. So we did not, plan on doing an expansion, but we did, and we made it pay what you want, so you could get it for free. You could download it for free if you wanted to, or if you wanted to give us a couple of bucks or $3 or $4, you could do that too. But as long as the game's available, I don't ever think the game is dead. Even if you own the game and you have it and you want to keep playing it 30, 40, 50 years into the future, it's still never dead. It's obviously hard to find for other folks, for sure. But someone asked before if we were going to, continue printing Rain in Hell, and yeah, because we're using print on demand technology, we don't ever have to really worry about it. Unless that company goes out of business, then we've got to find somebody else to do the print on demand. But print on demand works great for that kind of stuff because we don't have to, outlay a bunch of money at first to print a whole bunch of copies and then sit on a bunch of them in a warehouse someplace and ship them out and do all that stuff. We can just handle it through this other company, and it works. It's been working great. We've been real happy with it. So thank you for addressing the WYSIWYG. That's been something that drives me nuts. Yeah, same here. That is a thing. Having to replace one model with another is the main reason why I don't like chess. Sure, I can understand that. Digimon seems like the solution to that problem, where they evolve mid-battle and then degenerate. Is it degenerate or degenerate? When it's over. Interesting. I wonder if a pre-magnetized miniature game would ever be a thing. Would be definitely have to be a skirmish game. I mean, it would for sure have to be a skirmish game. I mean, there was a game that, who made that? WizKids made a game that was based off of Shadowrun, and it was pre-painted Shadowrun figures that were basically like action figures. They were a good, I don't know, they were tall, and I think they were posable, and they came on a base that was kind of thick and had like almost like a little tiny drawer in there, and then you could put different weapons in that little tiny drawer to keep them together. So they looked initially like, like Shadowrun people, but they were pre-painted, kind of posable, had different guns, but there was a game that you sort of kind of played with them. Not so much like a normal miniatures game with terrain and all that kind of stuff, but there was sort of a game that kind of went along with them. It didn't do well. Most of you probably haven't heard of it, and that would be why. Yeah, the HeroClix thing has worked better for them. But yeah, I don't know, like a fully pre-magnetized game, I don't know. That's a good question. It'd be cool, but I still want some of those Conflict 47 minis. I have cunning, nefarious plans for them. Well, that sounds like fun. Adam, have you used some other minis than Anvil Industries and Zona Alpha? Yeah, like my zombie guys are a mixture of Mantic zombies with kind of slightly near future, not quite sci-fi soldiers from a company that I think went out of business called Defiance Games. I had a bunch of sprues that they sent me, and they're like kind of pseudo near future military guys. So I was able to use like their pants and some of their helmets, and then the zombie bodies and stuff like that, and make them look like military zombies, like not, like they were military dudes, then they got zombified, and now they're still, that kind of thing, as opposed to like taking some zombies and then bringing them into the army, which seems like a terrible idea. But yeah, so I've done that. What else? Eureka Miniatures, actually the guys that are on the thumbnail of that, there's like the zombies on one side of the screen, and then there's like the guys in like mop gear on the other side of this. Those guys are not from Anvil Industries. They're from Eureka Miniatures. Those guys are metal miniatures, like One Piece and stuff. One Piece miniatures. The cultists are from Anvil. I've got some other guys that didn't end up in the video that are more like private military contractor types. Those are all from Anvil as well. Anvil makes some great stuff. I really like their resin miniatures. Are the Cursed City heroes usable in Warcry? If not, that would be super cool. I don't know what the heroes are. I don't think so. I haven't seen anything. I know that a lot of the skeletons and a lot of those other creatures and stuff like that that are in that box are usable in Warcry, but I don't know that the regular heroes and stuff are, which is a little bit of a bummer because I've painted several of them. But you know, I remember all the Warhammer historical rulebooks. I still wish I had mine. Gaddis Gaming. I have a ton of World War I tanks for sale. It's true. I bought 2 of them. I bought a A7V, which is a German World War I tank that looks like a box. And the other one is the Renault or Renault. I think it's pronounced Renault because it's French. FT, I think is the... Anyway, but yeah, I'm going to be using those as haunted tanks in the Last War. Looking forward to it. Referring to Warcry beasts, it appears that the Multilith Vortex beast is no longer available. Missed getting that for Warcry and Thousand Suns. Oh, that's a bummer. I've got one painted that I like. He's fun. GW actually released a fantastic Orc box set for Warcry. It had 5 Brutes and 5 Iron Jaws on their sprues for $60 US, but it was only out for a short time. Yeah. It's interesting when they kind of do these little weird, like, just drop them out there, yeah. Bulldogs is the name of the Wargames Atlantic Space Brit team. Gotcha. Let's see here. Cubicle 7. Is that what it is? There you go. Are there any Adepticon-like events in Europe? All I can find are games days of regular board games. Not that I know of. I don't think there's anything quite like Adepticon in Europe. From what I understand, the American gaming conventions are very different than UK and Europe conventions. A lot of the UK and Europe conventions that I have seen have been frequently like a one-day thing, and that's it. Gen Con, Adepticon, PAX, all those are generally Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They're a long kind of thing. And I don't know what is behind that. I've been told that part of it is just the fact that convention space is obviously so difficult and expensive in specifically the UK that it is just like you can't afford to have the place for that many days or whatever and that kind of stuff. So that could be part of it, but there could be other things as well involved. I don't know what they are though. Is the new Reign in the next place nearly ready for release? The next game is not Reign in anything. It's a totally different game system. It's going to take place, it's a science fiction thing. It's going to have solo and co-op built in right from the beginning. It's going to be kind of actually more focused on that. You can still play it adversarially if you want to against somebody, but it is designed to be played a little bit more solo and co-op. It's in progress. We're going to be launching it this summer. The artwork... The artist that we've got, who is awesome, is he's just started on the artwork like maybe a week ago or so. So, yeah, as far as the rules are concerned, we are just about locked down on the rules. Actually, we got a meeting tonight, Vince and I, and we'll be probably passing that off to the 2 different proofreaders that we're going to be sending it to. So that hopefully we don't have some errors like we did with the last one, spelling errors and such. But yeah, so that's in progress. Drive-through RPG print on demand. So the company that owns Drive-through RPG is a company called One Bookshelf, and they own Drive-through RPG and Drive-through Cards and a bunch of different companies, including Wargame Vault. So it's all the same family of different websites. But yeah, it's basically the same stuff. Like you can technically buy Reign in Hell through RPG or Drive-through RPG, which is weird because we didn't technically list it on there. We could have, I guess, but somehow, sometimes I don't understand how it works. But most of the times when sales come through, they say Wargame Vault, but every once in a while it'll be like Drive-through RPG, and then there's other ones that pop up that are all part of that same overall umbrella corporation, not umbrella corporation, but you know what I'm saying, One Bookshelf. So I don't know exactly how that works, but whatever. It's I'm glad that people are buying it. Chess hasn't had an update in a few years. True. Blue Nine says, I forgot about the Shadowrun figures. Yeah, they were weird. It was back in the day. They're 6-inch figures, lots of accessories. Yep. Any hints on what sort of sci-fi miniatures I should be prepping for the next game release? We're looking at far-flung, faring space sci-fi or near future. More far-flung, more like, way out in the future. Not like cyberpunk or anything like that. Yeah, it's much more future. I suddenly want to write up a prototype for a skirmish game featuring evolving creatures. I mean, you certainly can. I would say these days it's probably one of the best times ever to be able to write and produce and sell a miniatures game. It used to be that if you wanted to write and sell a game, you had to figure out a way to get people to know about it because there was no internet, or very limited internet. Like when I first started, the first game that I ever worked with my friend Peter on, my friend Peter and I made a game which was originally called BattleBots. This was before the BattleBots TV show that was on Comedy Central. We came out with this game in like 92 or 93. And we would go and sell it at Gen Con, and we never got it into distribution. Like people would find it at Gen Con walking around the booths and stuff like that back when it was still Milwaukee, back when it was like 18,000 people instead of 72,000 people like it is today. And we couldn't even make a PDF because there was no PDFs back then really. So later on in the years afterwards, we started to get into doing some more PDF stuff, and then there was companies like One Bookshelf, with Drive Through RPG Now, Wargame Vault, all that stuff, and that was cool, and that allows people to be able to. So right now, if you want to write a rule set, it's a great time. And honestly, if you're also, let's say you're a good sculptor, or you can pay a good sculptor, or you've got a friend who's a good sculptor who you can pay, or whatever the deal is, you could be selling the rules and also the STLs, and then people could buy that stuff, and they could live wherever in the world, and you don't have to worry about warehousing and shipping and all that stuff. And it actually works out great, specifically for indie folks. Profit margins are not as high as if you were to get a bunch of stuff produced and warehouse it and ship it, but I think it's a lot less hassle. And if it's not your day job, I think it makes a lot of sense. I have those Shadowrun figures. You can change weapons and some of the clothes. Ooh, that sounds fun. I think a few Anvil Industry models have magnet slots built in. Yeah, they might. A pre-magnetized game could work as long as it was about the size of a chess set or so, but not pre-painted, in my opinion. Yeah, that would be pretty expensive. Which do you prefer in the hobby, painting or building miniatures or scenery? That's a good question. I think that I probably prefer... That is a good question. I do have a really good time painting terrain. I really do enjoy doing that stuff. That being said, I think it's probably miniatures, but it's real close. I don't want to cop out and say it's 50-50, but it's real close. 52-48, you know what I mean? I would say that I prefer painting miniatures just a little bit more to terrain, but I do really enjoy doing terrain. My cousin was sick for Shadowrun back in the late 80s. Disturbing. He's a bit odd anyway. Became a Freemason or some weird reason. I blame Shadowrun. I don't know. Does Shadowrun turn you into a Freemason? Maybe. I guess. Well, let's say it does. I don't know. My friend's dad was a Freemason. He seemed fine. I don't know. Perfect example of a game actually dying would be Mercs and Dust. That being said, even Mercs is coming back. Turns out games that are hard to kill, people love them. It's true. I actually know one of the guys that's bought the license to Mercs and is redoing it. So yeah, and Dust, I don't know what Dust is doing right now. I know that the company's kind of out of business and some of the people are working for other companies now. But which is a bummer because I thought Dust was a cool system. It just I don't know. I'll have to see if I can find. I kind of want some of the weird cultists that they have, actually. If I can find some of those. Those guys, the weird Cthulhu cultists were kind of neat for the Dust USA, I think is what they were calling it, at least here in the States. Whoops. Um, Spiel Essen is pretty big. I believe that's the largest tabletop convention in the world. That one takes place in Germany. Um, yeah, that one's last I heard, and I don't know if I'm right on this, but this again is in the before times. Something like 100,000, 110,000, something like that. People. Yeah, it's a big, 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 big event. Did you replace Pirates of the Spanish Main? Would love to see that concept of a constructible card / minis game come back together with better engineering. Yeah, I did. Actually, we used to play at the bar. We would bring our, because if you don't, I think it was WizKids, wasn't it? It was WizKids that made these. It was the little Pirates game where it was like a little credit card, and you popped out all the pieces and you put them like tab A in a slot B, and you made little tiny pirate boats. But you bought them like you didn't know what you were going to get. They were random pack kits, and you would get them, and you'd get, I don't know, 4 or 5 boats in a little foil package, and they were, like I said, like credit card, like the material, but they were perforated, and you pop them out or whatever and make these ships, and it was really cool. And we used to play the heck out of that, but it was small enough you could play it like we would play it at the bar in the booth, and it was fun. I still have I was going to say a boatload of those, but that's, well, I have a box load of those somewhere down in the basement. Actually, I think they're in a foot locker that I use as a footrest when I'm actually streaming on Twitch. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where they are. But it was a fun little game. It was really cool. In Germany, there is the Taktika in Hamburg Wargaming Convention. Oh, I've never heard of that. That's kind of cool. Let's see here. Cons definitely seem different and more scarce here in Europe. Sweden has very little, but then Sweden would be a very scarcely populated U.S. state. Sure, that's true. Like the state that I'm in, Wisconsin, is only about 5 million people. I think that's the whole size of the state. So it's also like the most sparsely populated state in the United States, I believe, is Wyoming, and I think it's like 500,000 people in the whole state, and it's a big state, so there's a lot of like nothing kind of going on there. I mean, trees and nature and stuff, and that's cool. But yeah, so yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely like in a smaller place like that or whatever, as far as population and things like that, it would make more sense for it to be in a population center. So in some of the bigger cities, that would be the place I would assume that your conventions would pop up. Like me living in the Midwest of the United States, there's a lot of tabletop gaming that goes on here, predominantly because, and I don't know this to be true, but I've always felt, it feels true. I've always felt that it's because of the winter. Like there's a lot of tabletop gaming that goes on in the Midwest because in the winter you're not going to go outside and do a lot of stuff. Like you might ski, you might sled, you might freeze to death. Like you got options there. But in general, yeah, it's a lot of indoor things, and so because of that, tabletop gaming I think is pretty big in the Midwest, and so there's a lot of stores, and there's a decent amount of small conventions in the Midwest as well. Next game is called Rain in Spain. Falls mainly on the plane. That's a big logo. I don't know what that. Cyber Rain. No. There's no rain. There's no rain. See, a lot of people have also asked us, like, so is the next game like we're not making the next game to be using the same engine as the last game, as it were, like the same rule set. It's a different rule set. It is a different story. It's like everything is different. I don't know. I get the idea why big companies are like, we've made this game and we're just going to put all of our eggs into this particular basket. But for small indie folks, it to me makes sense to be like, you make this game and people enjoy it and you can do stuff and they can buy it. And then you make a different game. And then not only just I don't know that it necessarily helps from a sales point. Like I said, again, I'm not a very good capitalist. That being said, it's just more interesting to not just be like, well, we made this one game and now we're just going to keep making expansions and keep adding stuff and keep doing, this is the star to which we've hitched our wagon. I don't know if that's a saying or not, but I made it one. So that's why we want to make things different. The other thing too is that there were people that, like with Rain in Hell, that were like, I don't want to play this because it doesn't have any guns or shooting, range attack. There's no range attack in this game. You should put some range attack in this game. Now we could have made an add-on game that added, or a book or whatever that added range attack if we wanted to. Or we could just make our next game have some range attack stuff in it. Plus, it's also sci-fi. So if you're like, yeah, I don't like demons, I think they're weird. I would really like to play something with robots, please. Well, maybe there's robots in the next one or whatever. You know what I mean? So kind of switching it up and making different things. It's kind of like what that's downstairs. It's like what Osprey does with those Blue Book games. They it's a little different with them. Like they make a lot of those Blue Book games, like Zona Alpha, like Gaslands was a Blue Book game originally. What happened was that Gaslands got so popular, then they're like, oh, okay. It's kind of like they're throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Those Blue Book games are kind of already like nailed in. Their layout's all the same roughly. They're all 64 pages, so they've probably got some sort of numbers run on, you know, the cost benefit and blah, 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 and all that jazz. And then they just keep cranking them out. Billion Suns, Zona Alpha, Gaslands, Lion Rampant, Dragon Rampant, all the other ones. They've made a ton of them. Rogue Stars is another one that I own. And when all of a sudden one of them takes off, like Gaslands, then they go, oh, cool. And then they make a book that's specifically fancy for Gaslands. It's not one of those Blue Books, hardcover, got a full color cover, all that kind of stuff and everything. And that's great. But those other ones that they put out, they're just like, well, if this doesn't sell that well, no, that's okay, you know? So yeah, it's kind of the same thing with us. We're just like, we want to work on this project. Okay, cool. It's available from now on. You'll be able to buy it. It's great. We'll keep answering rules questions about it. We made an FAQ. If we need to make a second one because all of a sudden a bunch of other weird questions crop up, great. We even made an expansion, even though we didn't really plan on it originally. Next game, we'll do that. And then the year after that, next game will be something different. And we just, that's our plan. That's the way we're looking at it. And we're going to see if it works out. And it's not called Cyber Rain, that's for sure. Let's see here. Mercs coming back sounds interesting. I passed it up about 6 years ago. I haven't seen it since. Too bad. Yeah. The company that made it, which they changed their name, I think, to Megacon Games, I believe, at one point. Because originally they were just known as Mercs. And then they made another game called Myth and some other stuff. And then they were Megacon Games. And they did eventually kind of run out of business and stuff. And then they've, at least Mercs, I know that they've sold the license to Mercs to another company who's working on setting that up. Drive-thrus and Wargame Vault are all one big program, kind of a mess. I don't know. I think it works pretty well. The website backend is a little squirrely. It's a little old, but they are slowly working on upgrading it. I don't know what their plans are to upgrade Wargame Vault specifically, but I know there is, when you go to Drive-Thru RPG's website, they have a thing at the top saying, hey, click here to see a preview of what the new look of the thing is going to look like. And they've done a bunch of work with that, so that's good. Been making games for a long time. Even I have one on Drive-Thru Cards. Nice. I bought a game on Drive-Thru Cards. Had the word 52 in it. It's like Space Station 52 or something like that. I forget. It was kind of cool. I was partially because I wanted to know what the production value of the cards looked like, and the printing is really nice, actually. I'm a 10-year-old and we were looking at Kill Team for Necromunda. Have you ever played? I was wondering if you had recommendation. We play Warcry currently. If I had to choose between Kill Team and Warcry, wait, no, sorry. If I had to choose between Kill Team and Necromunda at this point, I would probably go with Warcry. Kill Team. I would go with Kill Team over Necromunda because Necromunda is really dense. There's a lot going on, and the new version of Kill Team, again, is not a bad rule set. If you buy one of those boxes like Octarius, Nachmund, Chalnath, you buy one of those boxes and just stick with that box, you're fine. That's a fine game. It's just the extra stuff that's kind of anyway. BattleBots? What? I saw something about BattleBots. Yeah, we made a game called BattleBots originally, and then eventually, like in the late 90s, that show came out on Comedy Central called BattleBots, where the RPG thing, or the remote control things ran into each other a bunch, and all that kind of stuff, and that became a deal. And then their lawyer sent us an email or a letter saying, hey, you got to stop doing that. You're using our name. And then we were like, actually, we published this in 92, so you're using our name. And then we sold them. We had like 70 copies of the game left, like an actual printed version. So we just sold them the 70 copies of the game at full price. And then we kept the copyright on the rules. And then we just repurposed the rules and sold it as under a different name, which was Metal Crushers at the time. and that worked out just fine. So, but it was just PDF only then at that point. Well, folks, it's a little after 11, actually. I've been counting yammering on here. So thanks for coming by and hanging out. Thanks for, I mean, you know, the stream sort of disappeared there for a bit, and that was fun. I have no idea how many viewers I have currently. XSplit up here has said that there's been 301 viewers since the reboot. This number over here on the screen that says 370 or 396 has been the same for the last hour, and then YouTube says 421 are watching, and that hasn't changed either. So I have no idea, but I apologize for the weird glitch, and I hope you folks had some fun and maybe got some hobby done. And if you get a chance, go to maybe a big convention. You know, I would tell you to try to go to some small conventions first to kind of get your feet wet. The big conventions are coming back. But if you do decide to go to a big convention, make very, very, very sure you understand what the, you know, mask mandate thing is and the vax and all that stuff, because you do not want to like fly to a city, go up to the thing, and then find out that you can't go in. You got to pay attention to that stuff. That's super important. But you can find a bunch of really cool, fun people and fun things and cool stuff to buy and fun games to play. Gen Con's the next big one that I can think of. So, well, Origins is coming up in June. I'm not going to Origins, but I am going to Gen Con. So maybe if you're going to Gen Con, I'll see you there. So I want to thank everybody for coming by. And if you get the chance, click the like button thing. That's supposed to help. You know, if you had a good time today, I appreciate that. And yeah, we'll see you soon. I'll be streaming on Twitch tomorrow night, Monday. Where's the button? Right there. 7 p.m. Central at twitch.tv/tabletopminions. All right. Well, again, have a good rest of your day, and thanks for watching.